Amidst the cracks, deceit, and crumbling walls, can love still find a way to bloom and flourish? The people residing in the southern state of Kerala, India, are grappling with substantial challenges and difficulties. The community has limited opportunities, which compels many to settle for a life of impoverished conditions and poor wages. It is difficult for many young men to provide for themselves and family. The jobs available pay barely enough for feeding. As a result, these people find it challenging to break free from the vicious cycle of economic instability. The government isn't providing solutions. Without a good educational background or the support of relatives residing in foreign countries, it becomes challenging to evade the everyday hardships of life. Consequently, the prospects of a brighter future seem distant and improbable for those who lack these privileges. Aliz, a member of this community, is coming to a realization. Like many young men of his age, he still resides with his parents. However, unlike his friends who have accepted their situation, Aliz desires more from life. He dreams of a luxurious lifestyle filled with everything good that life has to offer: a beautiful house, a gorgeous wife, luxury cars, and expensive wristwatches, among other things. Aliz is determined to achieve his dreams. He faces several challenges that hinder his progress toward his goals. For one, he isn't very educated, and he struggles to find gainful employment. Moreover, he is not very handsome, which may affect his chances of attracting a beautiful wife. He doesn't have the strength for manual labor, which limits his employment opportunities. He is not great with the ladies, making it even more difficult for him to find a suitable partner. His paternal uncle Gopalan is visiting, and Aliz isn't fond of him. He is an alcoholic and talks a lot when intoxicated. Uncle Gopalan is engrossed in the news, and his suspicious looks are making Aliz uncomfortable. So he decides to go to his room and switches on the television. As he flips through the channels, he comes across a news report that mentions a politician running for an election who bears his name and is being accused of corruption. Aliz can't help but think that maybe his breakthrough has come. An idea suddenly strikes him like a bolt of lightning, and he realizes he needs to meet his friend Avinash immediately. Even though Avinash may not be the brightest person, Aliz believes that every person has a unique set of skills and abilities, and even a seemingly foolish friend can sometimes come in handy. Aliz meets up with his friend Avinash and shares his plans with him. He plans to meet the politician and disclose his intention to stand in the election. As a namesake, Aliz is certain that he may split the votes of the opposition of the CDP party, which could jeopardize the politician's chances of winning the election. Aliz and Avinash dress up appropriately within their finest attire to meet the politician. Upon arrival, they inform him that they require a sum of money in exchange for their decision to step down from the electoral process. Too bad for them, the politician is not easily fooled by their ruse, and he sees right through their plan. This enraged him, and he chases them from his office. Aliz and Avinash leave the politician's office, feeling disheartened and uncertain of other mischievous ways to make fast money. They both realize that living a life of affluence may just be a far-fetched dream. As fate weaves its intricate web, the scene is unfolding, and Sajan, a renowned marriage broker, approaches Aliz with a proposition. Aliz has previously confided in him about his desire for a Canadian wife, hoping that this will pave the way for a better life outside his village. Sajan, however, has other ideas. Intrigued by Aliz's request, Sajan suggests that Aliz pretends to be a wealthy man, to capture the attention of the girl he's to match him with. Aliz is hesitant at first, but Sajan is persuasive, and assures him that this is the only way to win the girl's heart. Aliz reluctantly agrees and begins to heed to Sajan's instructions, practicing his English and acting the part of a successful businessman. On the other side of the world, Leia is living in Canada as a citizen, fully integrated into the system, having migrated there from India 2 decades ago. She exudes confidence and ambition, and she is actively pursuing her dreams and aspirations. Leia's stepdad and her mum also prioritize cultural and traditional values. They seek a partner who shares their beliefs and can assimilate into their family and community. Leia's parents continue to reinforce these values in their daughter, as they believe it will help her find a suitable partner. Leia, meanwhile, attempts to balance her parents' expectations with her desires. She actively participates in her parents' search for a partner, but also pursues her interests and passions outside of the traditional path her parents have set for her. Her parents notice this and are unhappy she may not find a suitable partner if she continues to prioritize her desires over their expectations. Despite the challenges, Leia remains determined to find a partner who not only shares her values, but also supports her in her life goals. She continues to navigate her path in life. She often remembers her childhood friend with whom she shared an incredible bond back in her hometown. Recently, she decided to utilize the services of a marriage broker. To her delight, the broker matches her with none other than her childhood friend. This coincidence is thrilling to her. As she speaks with him over the phone and exchanges pleasantries, she is beginning to feel the same excitement she felt years ago. Excited and eager for their daughter to get married, her parents begin to plan a trip back to India to meet their prospective son-in-law. The opposition party promises to pay Oliz some money in return for his endorsement and campaign, seeing he could penetrate the grassroots electorates. He utilizes his charms and persuasive skills during the campaign, making promises of a better life for the people if they vote for his candidate, telling the people what they want to hear and bringing positive exposure to his candidate. The people are unaware that he does this solely for financial gain. Fortunately, Oliz's strategy pays off, and the opposition party wins the election. As a result, he receives a substantial amount of money for his contributions to the campaign. After receiving the payment, he decides to repay the loan he had previously taken from Patel, a scraggly old man with a funny-looking mustache. He lends money out at outrageous interest rates and uses intimidation to get his money back. Seeing Oliz as a young guy in need, he decides to lure him into marrying his sister Simran, who is crippled and confined to a wheelchair. He has been looking for a husband for her, as she's of a marriageable age. The idea of a sizable dowry allures Oliz, who is greedy and will do anything for money, so he accepts the Patel's proposal. Basking in the euphoria of the huge dowry that comes with marrying Patel's sister, he is suddenly informed of the imminent arrival of Leia and her parents. He sees this as a huge opportunity. Leia is a Canadian citizen with a high-paying job, and he begins to feel that all of his dreams are finally coming true. However, he is faced with the challenge of declining Patel's offer without making him angry, as everyone knows that Patel is a malicious man, and not one to be trifled with. Oliz makes preparations to meet Leia and her parents. He works on his appearance and his carriage. The goal is to make a good impression on them. He hopes they like him and approve of the marriage proposal. As the day of the meeting approaches, Oliz is feeling both nervous and excited. He is aware this is an important moment in his life, and he hopes everything goes smoothly. He is determined to do whatever it takes to make Leia and her parents happy, and convince them to accept him as their future son-in-law. He meets with Leia's parents, and with a well-rehearsed speech, he displays himself as responsible and gains their blessings. He says and does the right things, and these convince Leia to accept his marriage proposal, as is the tradition. They have a low-key wedding ceremony and move in with Oliz's family for the honeymoon. Upon hearing about Oliz and Leia's wedding, Patel vows to deal with Oliz for reneging on his promise. Leia and Oliz are in the process of beginning their new life together as a married couple. However, their union is facing some problems. Before their marriage, Leia disclosed to Oliz while he was tipsy after a drink that she is struggling with alcoholism. This confession is a huge deal to Oliz, who is a traditional man. The couple receives a bottle of liquor as a gift from Oliz's elder brother, and having alcohol around the house triggers Leia's alcoholism. Leia succumbs to temptation and drinks the whole bottle. Oliz, fully aware of Leia's condition, does everything in his power to conceal her inebriation from his family. Leia's growing alcohol consumption causes her to behave out of character, and as time goes on, his mother and sister become increasingly suspicious. Oliz knows that if the family were to discover the truth, it could potentially cause a scandal. To prevent this, he tries to cover up Leia's absence when she goes out for a drink. Oliz faces a delicate situation as he attempts to keep the truth from being revealed. The new bride is unaware that Oliz is not who he pretends to be. His demonstrations of love and affection are simply an act, a facade. His feelings are not genuine. Oliz is quite embarrassed by his wife's alcoholism. As a small conservative community, women are not typically known for drinking alcohol or getting drunk. They are expected to be homely and domesticated, rather than brash or wild. But this new westernized bride of his is a sure escape route from poverty. In the next scene, Oliz is feeling excited, as he is traveling to Canada, but Leia doesn't seem to share the same enthusiasm. They settle in their seats when an air hostess approaches them and asks Oliz to fasten his seatbelt. However, Oliz is irritated and snaps back at the air hostess, refusing to comply with her request. Despite Leia's attempts to calm him down, Oliz behaves rudely toward the air hostess. As a result, the argument between Oliz and the air hostess is attracting the attention of the other passengers, who are becoming uncomfortable with Oliz's behavior. Leia tries to intervene, but Oliz becomes even more agitated and slaps her in front of everyone on the plane. This leaves Leia shocked and embarrassed. Leia is still angry and surprised at Oliz's change of behavior and decides to teach him a lesson. Oliz, on the other hand, feels it's time to assert his authority over his wife by speaking down to her. As they leave the airport, Leia calls a taxi and drives off, leaving Oliz stranded and confused. Oliz, who is just arriving in Canada, wanders around the airport until he hears an Indian song playing. Curious, he follows the sound and finds Jimmy, a fellow countryman. Oliz approaches Jimmy and explains his situation to him. Jimmy is hesitant at first, but eventually takes pity on Oliz and invites him to sit down for a meal. As they eat, Jimmy tells Oliz about life in Canada, and some tricks to speak and sound Canadian. In Jimmy's eyes, Oliz is a reflection of his past struggles. He, too, left behind everything in India to seek a brighter future in Canada. As they converse, Jimmy's heart opens up to Oliz, and he decides to lend a helping hand in his quest to find his father-in-law. He gets the contact and house address of Leia's stepdad from a friend. Jimmy then drives Alice to the apartment. Alice is livid as he walks into the apartment, where a party for the new couple is about to take place in a few hours. The decorations are impressive, but Alice doesn't seem to care. He's determined to teach Leia a lesson for what he perceives as a lack of respect. As Alice enters the apartment, he sees Leia and gives her a cold stare. Leia approaches him, trying to apologize, but Alice refuses to listen. He's seething with anger. Leia's stepdad arrives to welcome Alice with a handshake and an apology, which he grudgingly accepts. He sits in a corner, brooding. The party begins, and Alice watches as guests arrive and have a good time. He sees Leia laughing and talking with her friends, which only fuels his anger. He decides to confront her about their argument. Alice approaches Leia and reprimands her for leaving him stranded at the airport. She counter-reprimands him for assaulting her on the plane. Alice walks out to begin dressing up for the party. Curran, a buddy of Leia's, walks over to where she is and greets her with a peck on the cheek. He congratulates her on her recent marriage, even though her choice of spouse doesn't impress him. He expresses a desire to greet the groom after Leia hints him about the incident that occurred on the plane. Leia points him in the direction of the room where Alice is preparing himself for the upcoming party. Upon entering the room, the friend's presence startles Alice. He towers over him with an imposing presence and locks eyes with Alice, causing him to feel uneasy. The friend then confronts Alice and accuses him of slapping Leia, which sends a chill down Alice's spine. The tension in the room is palpable as the two men face each other. Alice is feeling threatened and intimidated by the friend's aggressive demeanor. He can see that the friend is upset and is not mincing his words when he warns him never to hit his wife. Alice is startled as the friend suddenly burst into laughter. The unexpected change in behavior catches him off guard, as he is not accustomed to seeing anyone act this way. The friend walks away, and Alice is left feels uncertain about how to react to the situation. Alice confronts Leia, demanding to know who the friend is. As he listens to Leia's response, he is taken aback to hear that the guy was her roommate for 2 years. Alice is surprised that Leia never mentioned this before, as this stirs a feeling of jealousy. Feeling frustrated, Alice accuses her of being intimate with Curran. Leia listens to Alice's accusations and tries to explain the situation. She tells him that her friend is gay and they never had a sexual relationship. She emphasizes that their friendship is purely platonic, so she never felt the need to mention it before. The reception hall is packed with guests from the bride's family. In attendance are Leia's biological parents, her stepfather Mr. Danny, and his newest wife Jessie, who's a stunning beauty. As the two couples enter the hall, they don't appear happy with each other and are not enthusiastic about the event. The MC calls on Leia's father to give a speech, and both her biological father and stepfather come forward. However, Leia's biological father doesn't seem to like this, and asks her stepfather to move aside. This situation amuses Alice, as he had no idea that someone could have two fathers representing them. Despite the initial tension, the atmosphere in the hall is starting to lighten up as the guests begin to mingle and chat with each other. Danny, Leia's father, stands on the podium preparing to give his speech when Jesse informs Alice of his open zipper predicament. Alice has forgotten to zip up his trousers, leaving him in an embarrassing situation. To quickly remedy the situation, Alice tries to zip up, but in his haste, he accidentally traps Jesse's flowing dress in his zipper instead. As a result of the mishap, Jessie finds herself stuck to Alice and unable to move. To fix the situation, Alice and Jessie quickly move to the corner of the room, where Alice grabs a knife to free Jessie from the dress. Danny is taken aback when he discovers his wife and son-in-law in a compromising position. He is unsure of what to make of the situation, and decides to confront his wife about it. When he questions her, she becomes defensive and evasive, making Danny even more suspicious. As the party comes to an end, the tension in the air begins to dissipate, and the couple finds themselves in a lighter mood. Leia walks over to her husband just as they begin to hear Danny and Jessie arguing in the background. Despite the argument between Leia's parents, the couple laughs it off, taking the argument in stride. Leia takes the opportunity to reassure Alice that she is not controlled by her parents, and that she makes her own decisions in their relationship. They both decide to take shot after shot of liquor, which leads to them passing out. Alice wakes up the next day expecting to find his wife by his side, but she's nowhere to be found. He decides to give her a call, and she answers briefly, telling him to check the fridge. Feeling a little confused, Alice makes his way to the fridge, hoping to find breakfast waiting for him. But instead, he finds a note with a list of chores that need to be done around the house. This makes him feel angry and frustrated. He begins to think that his wife is taking advantage of him, expecting him to do all the housework while she's out doing her own thing. As a conservative man, he believes that women are meant to do the chores at home. Feeling unsure about his stance, he decides to talk to his friend Jimmy. Jimmy suggests they go to see Achea, a marital counselor who's also a close friend of Leia's family, to discuss the issue. Jimmy drives him to Achea's residence, and once there, he starts to vent to Achea about his beliefs, and how he's struggling with the changes he sees happening in the world. Achea listens patiently and explains that times are changing, and women are now earning more money and having more power than ever. Achea also points out that this shift in power dynamics can be a good thing for relationships, as it allows for a more equal distribution of household responsibilities and wealth. He encourages the man to be open to new ideas and to consider the benefits of sharing the chores with his partner. Achaya is preparing dinner when he makes a huge revelation. He tells Ullaz that Leia's grandparents left a huge amount of money, worth millions, deposited in her name. However, Leia cannot have access to the money because of her alcohol addiction. But if Leia cures herself of her addiction and establishes she's in good condition, the money will be released to her, and he becomes entitled to a portion of the funds. He recognizes that to gain access to her money and ultimately obtain his permanent residence permit, he needs to be more compliant. Ullaz makes efforts to be more agreeable and easygoing in their relationship, although this goes against his natural inclination. He begins to do everything to please Leia, including taking on more household chores and being more attentive to her needs. Ullaz plans to go into business with his share of the money he will receive from Leia's trust fund. The prospect of finally living his dream excites him. Leia's drinking habit becomes more worrisome, but Ullaz is undeterred. He considers her advice to get a job and has taken up a blue-collar job as kitchen staff to prove that he is hardworking. However, on one of Achaya's visits, Ullaz asks about Leia's alcoholism. Achaya explains that Leia's biological parents encouraged her westernization and introduced her to alcohol, which she initially enjoyed as a pastime. However, after her parents' divorce, she turned to alcohol as a coping mechanism. Upon realizing this, Ullaz's heart softens towards Leia's predicament, and he gains a better understanding of her struggle. As time passes, Ullaz starts to see Leia differently. He realizes that, despite not fitting the mold of an ideal traditional wife from Kerala, she can be humorous, playful, and enjoyable to be around when she is not under the influence of alcohol. Ullaz is finding himself growing more attached to her company, and the childhood emotions that have been dormant for years are beginning to resurface. With a newfound determination, he decides to show kindness and support her in overcoming her addiction to alcohol. Ullaz's plans shatter for the worse as he goes out with Leia for a night hangout, and ends up drunk when his friend Avinash calls. Unfortunately, Ullaz is too incapacitated by alcohol to answer the phone call. In a fit of anger, Ullaz's friend reveals all of his plans, which Leia overhears. Leia feels betrayed by Ullaz's intentions and decides to seek an amicable divorce. This saddens Ullaz deeply, and he attempts to confront Leia about the situation. However, things take a violent turn as Leia smashes a bottle over Ullaz's head, causing injury and a visit to the hospital. When asked if he wants to press charges against her, he declines. During the divorce proceedings, Ullaz rejects the plea for divorce, after realizing that he truly loves and cares for Leia. Instead, he asks for Leia to be rehabilitated to overcome her addiction. The divorce appeal is being reviewed, and Ullaz is waiting for a response. After Leia completes her rehabilitation program, the divorce proceedings are finally concluded, and the couple goes their separate ways. However, Ullaz makes it clear that he wants to support Leia in any way, even though they are no longer together. He rejects any financial contribution, but before he leaves for India, he ensures that everything is in order in Leia's house to prevent her from relapsing. Leia realizes that she still loves Ullaz and decides to fly back to India to see him. Meanwhile, Ullaz returns and decides to remarry Simran. Though Patel is initially hesitant, he agrees to the marriage after Ullaz promises that he won't change his mind again. This time, he is ready to wed Simran. Despite Leia's apology and declaration of love, Ullaz declines and emphasizes that he cannot hurt Simran again, and Leia decides to attend the wedding as a guest. Dressing up for his wedding, Ullaz arrives at the venue, only to realize that he has been deceived by Patel. It turns out that Patel orchestrated the whole thing as a means of revenge against Ullaz for his past actions towards Simran. He desires to publicly humiliate Ullaz for leaving his sister for Leia. Ullaz is the fake groom, and the real groom, a namesake, emerges from the crowd. Although the situation is unfortunate for Ullaz, it comes as good news for Leia. There is hope for the two of them to be back together, since the wedding didn't take place, and Leia is willing to work things out with Ullaz.